Hello, I want to read everybody. I want to read just a couple of three verses. I'm going to be in Proverbs 3. I'm going to read verse 5 and 6. I think that's where it's going to go. And he said, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." Um, if ever was a time that we needed wisdom, we need it now. I'm not talking about the kind that they have at Harvard or Yale or MIT or all of that. I'm not talking about that. Everything we have, God gave us. He put a roof over our head, food on our tables, clothes on our backs. He put bread in our bodies, walking in our feet, and joy in our souls. Psalm 121, 1 and 2 said, "I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth." My help does not come from the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or wherever it is. It comes from God. I thank God for being God all by himself. He's the CEO of the universe. Nobody elected him. Nobody told him he could. He's just God all by himself. God's been too good to me to feel any other way but good. I may have pain in my body. I may have a few problems going on, but I still feel good in my soul. If I've got to wait till I have no pain in my body to feel good, I'm probably going to be waiting a long time. Somebody ought to know what I'm talking about. Proverbs 3:7 said, "Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil." And all the wise people out here that's got a real big education might ought to listen to this. 1 Kings 4:24, 29 through 31. 1 Kings 4:29 through 31. "And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding, exceeding much, and largeness of heart, and even as the sand is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the East country, all the wisdom of the East country, and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men." And then it lists some names out here. "And his fame was in all the nations round about. And he spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005." The book of Proverbs is divided into two classes of people, the wise and the foolish. The wisest man ever is the author of the statement, "Trust in the Lord and lean not upon thine understanding." That's what I want to talk to us about today, is trust in the Lord and lean not upon our own understanding. These 6 words put up against all other paragraphs and books, and there's no comparison for the knowledge of the world with this. It's superior. Those 6 words are greater and wiser than all advice you get from Dr. Phil or Oprah or Dr. Oz or any of them. Lean means rest upon. So don't rest upon your own understanding. To cast one's weight to one side for support, to rely on for support or inspiration. Lean not on your own understanding. This means for me not to try to think intelligently. It doesn't mean for me not to think intelligently or try to form plans. It just means God's wisdom is superior. Our wisdom is not sufficient without God's wisdom. Jeremiah 9:23 and 24 said, "Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might, nor the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, and that I am the Lord which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For these things I delight, saith the Lord." Don't be glorying in your own wisdom. Remember who gave you your mind. The same God that put it there can take it away. Who knows everything about everything? He knows everything about biology, architectural engineering, oncology, you name it, etc. Some people don't feel good because they've diagnosed their own case. We shouldn't lean upon our own understanding for our moral standards. How often do you hear people say, I don't see any harm in this or that. I thought it was all right. After all, everybody else is doing it. That was the argument my kids came up with, while other people's kids are doing it, and that sort of thing. How can anything so beautiful be wrong? But God knows. Job 21:22 says, shall any teach God knowledge? Seeing he judges all those that are high. He knows the numbers of the stars. He calleth them by name. Great is our Lord and of great power. His understanding is infinite. Thought about the Hubble telescope. I know years ago, man looked out. He finally got a telescope. And he said, the Bible said they're innumerable. And he got his telescope and he said, there's 1,400 and some odd stars or whatever. A few years later, he came up with a bigger telescope. And he said it's 2,000 and something. And then he kept getting bigger telescopes and the number kept going up and up and up. And finally, they got the Hubble. And they concluded that they could not be numbered. The very thing told us in the beginning. God tells us something in the Word, and then we want to go and disprove it or find out or whatever. And we come back to square one. The Bible is our standard for our morality. I guess somebody's thinking, oh man, well, who told you that? Your brain was given to you by God, and if he snatched it away, what kind of man would you be? Some may even go so far as to say I'm my own woman, and no man is going to tell me what to do. That's why there are some people the women that may be the boss on the job, but she may be over a lot of people. But when she comes home, she don't need to think that she can come home and boss her husband around. And we don't need to let famous people be our moral compass, our moral standards. I heard about a lady that was trying to get a minister was trying to get a lady to come to church, and she answered that her father was the best man that she had ever known, and he didn't go to church. He was constantly helping people, and he loved everybody, and everybody loved him. That's great, but you can't let somebody tell you one thing and follow that, and the Bible tell you something else. Well, Naaman said, I thought he thought he could be cleansed of leprosy another way other than God's way and plan. He got mad because he thought one river was as good as another. If you think you can go to heaven without a church and without going to church, then you just are in effect saying that Jesus died for nothing. Because Jesus died to set up our church. Jesus purchased the church with his own blood. We used to have we had a lady at one time that didn't come to church good, and I told my wife to check on her, and I told her just to call her and tell her that we loved her and we missed her, and we'd like to see her back in church. And she said, "Oh, Sister Melinda, I read my Bible at home. I have me a prayer. I feel the Lord when I'm at home by myself." She didn't make it. We have the word at the church. We have prayer at the church. We have testimonies at the church. That's the place we belong. And if you don't believe that, it's all right, brother or sister. That's the way it is. God had Noah to build the ark, and he preached for 120 years. His sermon was the same over and over. It's going to rain. It's going to rain. They probably got tired of hearing that sermon all the time. They probably told him, it's what you preached yesterday. It's what you preached last week. Please don't bring it down here next week. I want to ask you what happened to everybody that didn't get in that ark. Every person that didn't get in the ark wound up lost. The church is the spiritual ark. If you want to see Jesus, you better get in the spiritual ark, which is the church. He told us not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is in Hebrews 10:25, but exhort one another so much the more as you see the day approaching. There ought to be a gladness and a readiness when it comes time to go to church. By the time I get to church, I'm already feeling good. Psalm 122:1 said, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And I've always been that way myself. You can just get things at church you can't get anywhere else in the world. In the lesson of old Nebuchadnezzar, he got too mighty and too high. And in the same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar. And he was driven from men and did eat grass as oxen. And his body was wet with the dew of heaven till his hairs was grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails were like bird claw. I guess somebody's thinking I'm my own man. Who told you that? Like I said, if your brain was snatched away from you, what kind of man would you be? A college student was in a philosophy class which had a discussion about God's existence, and the professor presented the following logic. Has anybody in the class heard God? Nobody spoke. Has anybody in the class touched God? Again, nobody spoke. Has anybody in the class seen God? When nobody spoke for the third time, he simply stated then there is no God. One student thought for a second, then asked for permission to reply. Curious to hear this bold student's response, the professor granted it, and the student stood up and asked the following questions of his classmates. Has anybody in this class heard our professor's brain? No, silence. Has anybody in the class touched our professor's brain? Absolute silence. Has anybody in this class seen our professor's brain? When nobody in class dared to speak, the student concluded, then according to our professor's logic, it must be true that the professor has no brain. The book of Romans reminds us that God is evident in his majestic creation and man is without excuse. God gave us our brain. He can take it away from us. And I'm going to say one more time, real briefly if I can. I was born with water on the brain, very severe. And sincere, I guess, but very severe. And I went to a neurologist in Birmingham in 2001. And he said that he had never met me. And when he looked at my charts, my MRI and CAT scan, and he came into the room, he thought he was going to be looking for someone that was retarded and that somebody was taking care of. And so God has really helped me. And he can take and reverse that if I don't give him the praise and if I don't acknowledge that it's him, that God is my helper. So I've enjoyed getting this to you. If you need something that I'm not telling you about, I'm praying that the Lord will get me the right thing to tell you. But just tell me what you need. And I want God to tell me what you need, and surely all of that will work out. Until next time.